blog and concept that we had on our website for years called the PIcasso Man. And the point of this was legacy. So I'm using that and bringing it into today. So it used to be we would go in and say, okay, your technology support, you needed, 5% CIO, 10% IT guy, 20% administrative, 20% engineer, 30% help desk, 15% analyst, And that was kind of the old days. And a lot of small companies, and I mean small, under 200 people, had to figure out how to do all these roles without each person being full-time. So my CEO, Tim, has this whole PIcasso idea that, you can't be just a regular person. You have to have faces and be all types of different people. And that was great. But now moving forward, what about cybersecurity? That adds to this whole thing. No one had to worry about that, not even 3 years ago. And I'll say that 3 years ago, people who were worried about cybersecurity were, updating their antivirus. That was about it. And things really changed. And I went through why that changed. But the point is that the old days, people had to deal with this. Now they have to deal with more than that. So I just briefly want to touch on cybersecurity and define it a little bit. Everybody knows this. You got to detect and block your threats, defend, protect, don't strain your resources, and make sure that it's appropriate for your model and industry. But really, when I think about this, when I was a kid, home security was a baseball bat next to the door. And we didn't live in a great neighborhood, so it was like a lot of people probably had no security, but you handled it yourself. Now, I mean, how many of you have Ring cameras, sensors, detectors, and attached to that is a huge call center of people just watching monitors and getting ready to call the police on your behalf or call you. And so that's the same thing that's happening in cybersecurity. And I just want to point that out. So when it comes to cybersecurity, here's what we see in terms of staffing. Cyber talent is expensive, even for us. It's like somebody new in their career who's graduated from a proper college or school can make $100,000 sitting around watching computer screens. I don't know that is something that I would like to do, but it's pretty good money. So how are you going to hire somebody like that? The other thing is that the security tools now cost between $20 to $50 per user per month. It used to be, and like I said, it was only 3-4 years ago that companies may have had, antivirus on every machine. And, that was $4 or $5 per machine. Then you would add to that maybe some email protection for $4 or $5 machine, something like that. And depending on your business, you probably have a few other things that were built into your, IT budget. Now, to get that whole, we call it a stack, where you've got the call center waiting on all the alerts from your network and reacting and doing everything that you need to do, endpoint detection, response, monitoring, the whole managed security operations center. All of these cost money, and they're all priced per user per month. So somewhere in here, you can start getting the price up for every person that you have using the computer. So it's important for you to know that your costs are going to go up. And, you've got to figure out how to do the whole thing more perfectly and cheaper at the same time. So you can't do it yourself. Anybody who thinks that they can, talk to me. Anyway, it's a 24/7 job. Who can hire somebody 24/7 at the skill levels we're talking about? And also cyber is always evolving at a really fast pace. It's like what the criminals are doing today is not what they're going to be doing tomorrow. We all know that. So not only do you need somebody to react to the alarms, you need an alarm system So that's where all this money is coming in. So I want to introduce what we see going on in the industry, and you may already know all this, but it's important to kind of, lay it out here. I think there was a time when companies either outsourced their IT or they didn't. So under 50 people, pretty much outsourcing, right? They might have an administrator in-house who kind of managed the whole thing, but you had a company that pretty much did everything. Now, companies who are in 100, 200 person size, they need their internal team. Why? Because they need to manage their own business. The left side is all about, of this diagram, is all about the unique needs of your business. If it's flavored and colored, your business, your industry, you need to handle that. And that comes down to what we've talked about, the employee training, knowing when something is wrong, being able to escalate that, having people who understand your business applications inside and out and how you use them, maintaining policies and procedures. That's really important, especially with cyber, because we got more policies, we got more procedures. Data management, maintaining data privacy, making sure that people aren't putting important data where they shouldn't be putting important data. Of course, you can have tools from your technology provider that can detect that, but you need to have those policies in place. And then the last thing is your online media. You may have somebody else doing that for you, but it's certainly part of your marketing effort, part of your branding effort, proper identification of the company. Sorry. So your outsource team needs to focus on the things, like I said, that keep the lights on, the doors locked. And that's VCIO, CISO, security officer. You'll never afford one of those. The IT maturity model. It's hard to develop that internally. You really can't do that. And, outside companies have to do that because they're working for so many different companies. The security stack, talked about that, 24/7 monitoring, patch management, that whole thing. Who in your organization is going to do that religiously? It's like they'll have the most boring job in the world, but there are companies like ours who do that on an automated basis. Remote remediation of issues, onboarding, offboarding. This is one, and I talk about this gray area because you can move these back and forth, but onboarding and offboarding of employees, and I'm not talking about getting them into the payroll system. I'm talking about how their computers are set up, how they're educated, how they understand what they're supposed to do. All of that is often outsourced now. And then IT vendor management, your internet provider, your phone provider, and all those kinds of things. It's like you don't need to have your people sitting on hold on an 800 number forever because somebody's cell phone or whatever isn't working correctly. So these co-managed relationships are varied, but what works for one organization may not work for the other. But the whole concept of co-managed IT is very, very prevalent in the marketplace. All right, we're getting there. So key takeaways. I think being proactive and reactive versus reactive is the difference between failure and success. And, it used to be you could limp along, kind of being a reactive IT division, but cyber's changed that. It really has. As I've said, spend more on the I and less on the T. Get you a co-managed IT company that'll focus on the T, on an automated and cost-effective basis. IT departments, you have heavier loads, and you may have people who are trained or have a whole history of being in IT with skills that probably aren't needed anymore. I talked about the network engineer. It's like everybody seemed to have one, but now, I don't know. Maybe you can retrain them. Maybe you can, do something else. Cybersecurity is an asset, not an expense. I go on and on about this. It's something that you have to have. And so you can't see it as, well, I don't know if I can pay for it this year. I mean, you may have bugs in your system, criminals in your system right now. The average time between a breach and when somebody gets in your system and they actually do something is months, because the people who get in aren't necessarily the people who take the data. You know, they'll send that ability to get into your system to the highest bidder, and that takes time. And they may wait and understand your business and when the worst time it is to attack you so that you'll pay the most money. And the last point was that co-managed IT services provide, increased security, expertise, and affordability.